y'all, welcome back to my channel. Amy here. Today we are going to finish up talking about the books that I read in April. I didn't get much more reading done in April because of one particular book you might know that I have read. But we'll get into that one as well, because even though I finished it in May, I read most of it in April. So we'll talk about it. But we're going to start off with the You series by Carolyn Kepnes. So last month in April, You Love Me came out. This is the third book in the You series. I was super excited to jump right into it, but it's been so long since I've been in Joe's head, I thought I would go ahead and reread the first two books. So before I hopped into You Love Me, I keep wanting to call it Love You More, but it's You Love Me. I re-listened. Well, I actually read this the first time I got it, but I went ahead and I listened to it this time. This is the first book, You, by Carolyn Kepnes. This is where we meet Joe Goldberg and officially fall in love with him. He becomes obsessed with Beck, a young woman that walks into his bookstore, and he becomes like the ultimate stalker in this book. And I love the way Carolyn Kepnes kept the dialogue as like Joe's telling you this story, but he's talking to Beck, but when he refers to you, he's talking to Beck. It was such a different turn on how to tell a story. I fell in love with it, and this became one of like my favorite books. And I fell in love with Joe, of course. I've never fallen in love with a villain as much as I've fallen in love with Joe Goldberg. Then we move on to Hidden Bodies. This is the second book in the You series. It wasn't when I first read this. I actually first listened to it because I heard the narrator for the You series was fantastic, and he was totally Joe. So I jumped into the audiobook with this one. Loved the audiobook. Loved the narration. The guy that does Joe's voice, he really does bring Joe to life. He does a fantastic job at bringing Joe to life. But for some reason, the book just didn't do it for me the first time around. The second time I listened to this, I don't know if because I was more in tune with it, or the story was just fresh in my mind, because this came out, or I didn't read this, or maybe it came out a while after this one came out. I don't really remember, but it was a lot of space between the two books. But the second time I listened to this, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So in the first book, we're following Joe. He's just in New York, in his hometown, in his little bookstore. In this book, he moves on to LA, where he once again becomes obsessed. She's going crazy back there. I don't know. Are you playing with Bernice? I have a little porcelain kitty. It was my, okay, excuse her. It was my grandmother's, focus on me, camera. Okay, thank you. It was my grandmother's, and she gave it to me before she passed away. So it means a lot to me. I named her Bernice after my grandmother. So she comes with me. She was in my office, but I moved her into here because I figured this would be my kind of zen place whenever I get my little nook set up back there. But anyway, I guess Bella was just like, I don't have a moment. I'm not sure. Anyway, Joe is in LA in Hidden Bodies. Once again, he has become obsessed with someone, a woman named Love. Love is just a tad bit older than Joe, but she's a great character. I actually really liked Love. Beck, I didn't really like her so much. She kind of gave me I kind of got annoyed with her. She kind of gave me Bella vibes. I don't know. But anyway, Love is definitely more for Joe, I would say. I think Joe met his match in Love, and I really liked her. So in this second book, like the second time around, I was more in tune to the story and more in tune with Joe's relationship to Love and Love's family, and how it kind of almost changed him in a way. But we still get the same Joe, just a lot more action, a lot more going on. Joe goes a little stir crazy in this book, and he, there's a lot more killings happening in the second book. Not necessarily by, like, what I love about Joe is he doesn't mean to do it. He's trying to be a good guy. He really is. He's trying his hardest to be a good guy. But nothing goes right for him, and he ends up killing more people than he really wanted to kill. But he also reminds me a little bit of like a Dexter type of killer, I guess you could say. But yeah, we had a little bit more bodies in this book. A little bit, to me, a little bit better of a love story between Joe and Love. So the second time around, I really enjoyed this book a lot more. And then we jump into You Love Me. This one kind of goes back to the basics. We're kind of going back to book 1, where Joe's obsessed with this one person in a small town. We're in, like, I don't know, the West Coast or something. Where are we in this book? It's definitely not a city. Like, Joe's getting out of the cities. Pacific Northwest, West Coast. So yeah, he's living on this little island, and he's volunteering in this local library where he meets, I don't even remember her name. That's how much, like, I didn't like her. I really didn't like this character. Mary Kay. Mary Kay is her name, and he becomes obsessed with Mary Kay. But Joe has taken a turn for the better, and he's doing his best to get Mary Kay the old-fashioned way. Not by stalking and killing her, and killing people, even though there is a lot of stalking in this book. But not as much as with Beck. He does his best not to kill anybody, but yet there are still bodies falling around him. I'll just leave it at that. There's definitely a different vibe to Joe in here. I feel like he's grown a little bit more. But yeah, I didn't like Mary Kay. I didn't like his love interest. I even liked Beck better than I liked Mary Kay, which is saying something. But yeah, we're basically going back to the basics. We're going back to book 1, where he's just obsessed and stalking, but yet he's trying to be a better person about it. So yeah, You is definitely my favorite out of the 3 books, and I did go back and also watch the Netflix series, the 2 seasons. Season 1 is definitely, they definitely stay with the book in season 1 a lot, but in season 2 there's all the same characters, but the plot is very different, and how things are handled are very different. Yeah, characters are there, it's just very different from the book. So I advise, definitely watch the Netflix show. The Netflix show for season 2 is better than the book, in my opinion, but I still enjoyed Hidden Bodies the second time around. So that's my spiel on the You series. Then I picked up Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. This was part of the Book Troops book club pick for the month. I see a tail in back of me. It's time to EAT. That's why she's hanging around me. Anyway, I was very disappointed by this book. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, but I feel like it was more of a 2.5. I just wasn't, no. It had great potential. It really did. A secluded island, an ex-boyfriend or an ex-lover possibly stalking our main character. So it had good potential, but that's not really where it went. So our main character, Abigail, she is getting married to this guy. I don't remember his name. She does a very bad thing. She cheats on her fiance on her bachelorette party. And that's kind of where the book starts, We get the whole story of how it happened. Then we also get a backstory of Abigail. I got really bored in the beginning and wasn't sure, you know, where this was going. And then they finally get married, and we jump to the honeymoon. And her husband takes her to like this secluded island where there's nothing but men on this island, which I found very weird. There was only like maybe another couple there on their honeymoon. So it was just Abigail and this other chick, and then a girl that worked for the hotel or whatever it was on this island. And it was just those three women, and then just a whole bunch of men. I was like, okay, what? Why? I just found there was a lot of faults in here, a lot of unrealistic, and I know it's fiction, but I don't know, there was something about our character that in the end, I think the author was trying to portray her as like this badass bitch, but yet I don't feel like he upped her enough to be like this badass bitch. Like, she was like getting away with all this stuff too easily, in my opinion. I don't know. And then it kind of turns culty. No, not kind of. It does. It turns culty. Yeah. I'm okay with cults, but it's got to be done right. It's got to be done right. And this was just not done right. It definitely was a disappointment. And then last but not least, we have The Stand by Stephen King. I just actually recently finished this. As I'm filming this, I finished it like 2 days ago. I'm just proud of myself for finishing this whole thing. I started off reading it, probably got up to chapter 20 before I went ahead and I used a credit on Audible to finish it up, just so I could catch up on it. I was falling behind with the whole horror and 24 outline, and so yeah, so I just wanted it in my ear while I was doing things around the house. I constantly had it on. It kind of took over my life to the point where I miss the narrator and I miss the story. Isn't that weird? But it was so much a part of me for like the whole month, almost the whole month of April and a little bit into May. Like I said, I'm just proud for finishing this book. But I will say, if the pandemic is a trigger for you, if you've had a very bad experience with the pandemic, I don't advise you to go into this book ever. Maybe later on in life, but yeah, it's too close to home. It's almost like King predicted what is currently happening. But what breaks out here is the super flu. And in the beginning of this book, it's all about the super flu and how it kind of broke out and how it went from person to person, state to state, city to city. It was crazy how this was so similar to the pandemic that we are going through in current times. The writing was definitely King. This was written in the 70s. It was redone in the 90s, but you can tell from the writing that it's definitely was written in the 70s, because there's a lot of 70s slang up in here, where if this was written in the 90s, no, people would not have been talking like this, I don't think. It was very racist, very discriminating, but I enjoyed the story of it. Like I said, the first part we get most is just the pandemic and how it spread. We learn about our people that we're going to be following: Franny, Stu, Larry, Nick, Tom, so many other characters, but those are the ones that are, you know, sticking to my mind, because those are the ones that we follow the most along in this book. And then like the last half of the book is basically all our people coming together and forming like this government. It very much reminded me of The Walking Dead when it got to this point, minus the zombies. The super flu sort of went to the background towards the end. And it ended up to be a battle between heaven and hell and good and evil. The ending to me was, it was like it built up and this thing happened and then it kind of gradually went down. But it wasn't like, I don't know, I think I was just expecting something crazy, but it really wasn't. But I still enjoyed the story, and I'm glad I made it through the whole thing. If you want to dive into The Stand, I highly recommend the audio. The narration was wonderful. But yeah, it's definitely all over the place. It's definitely King. I'm just glad I got through with Stephen King, and I liked it. So if you want to see my vlog, or if you haven't watched my vlog, I'll have it linked down below. I spill all the tea. It's nothing but spoilers in that vlog. So if you don't plan on reading it, go ahead and watch the vlog. But if you plan on reading it, don't watch the vlog. Because it's nothing but spoilers. It was hard not to give anything away because it's such an in-detailed book. And it's so all over the place, you don't really know how to talk about it without giving things away. And I probably gave some things away here. We know it's about a pandemic. And I knew it was going to be heaven versus hell, but I didn't really know, what it all entailed. I watched the show years in the early 90s when they came out with it. But I could not remember anything about it. I just remember, I think it's Gary Silas is his name. He was Lieutenant Dan on Forrest Gump, and Molly Ringwald were Stu and Franny. I remember them, but I just don't remember the story very well. I just knew there was a pandemic or an outbreak of some sort, and then a war between heaven and hell. So there you go. That's basically The Stand in a nutshell. But it was a good story. I loved learning about all these people. It made me love a lot of them. Some of the people came through to me as like I did not like them, and I knew they were going to be bad. So yeah, if you want to know all the details, all the gory tea spilled, go watch my vlog. But that's it, y'all. That's the remainder of the books I read in April. Not as much as I thought. But this one right here took a whole chunk out of my month, so that's that. But anyway, thank y'all so much for watching, as always. Hope you're all doing well out there, staying safe. I'm gonna go feed my Bella, and I will see y'all very, very soon in a new video. Bye, y'all.